Life Matters. I'm your host, Brendan O'Connell. Well, one of the true icons of the pro-life movement, Miss Nellie Gray, passed away in 2012. And they searched around for someone who could fill her shoes, and we think we found that person. Her name is Jeanne Monahan. She's been a guest on this show before when she was with the Family Research Council. She attended James Madison University in her college days, and now she's heading up the March for Life Education and Defense Fund. Well, welcome, Jeanne.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Jeanne, could you please speak first to the legacy that Nellie Gray left regarding the Right to Life movement and the March for Life, which is really an enormous event down in Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, on that, just on your final note there, the March for Life is the largest pro-life event in the world that we know of, and we think it's the largest civil rights protest in the world as well. But in terms of Nellie's legacy, I mean, gosh, there's just so much to say. It's hard to know where to begin. I mean, obviously, it's only by standing on this amazing foundation that she's built for the last almost 40 years that now we'll be able to move forward and grow in some different directions. But Nellie was just really a remarkable woman, very principled, really staunch in her principles, and was remembered very much for not being willing to bend in the areas that mattered most. One of her favorite phrases was "no exceptions, no compromise," and what she meant by that was no abortion is ever right. It never, in the cases of anyone would an abortion be right. Nellie, retired from federal government in her mid-40s, right around the time that Roe happened, that the Supreme Court made the decisions in Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton. And she got together with a few other folks that felt really strongly about the abortion issue and wanted to be sure that the first anniversary wouldn't go unnoticed, because the other side was thinking that the outcry over legalized abortion would pretty soon die down. Little did they know that that first March for Life would grow from however many couple of thousand that went to now hundreds of thousands annually, and again, to being the largest pro-life event in the world. So we're grateful to Nellie, and it's just a huge loss to the movement, although we believe in heaven she's praying for us now and looking down upon us.
I see. Now, what are some of the things that you hope to change or bring advancements or other directions that you'd hope to have at the march itself, or for the Education and Defense Fund to do during the course of the year?
Well, for starters, our initial goal is simply to get through this march and to do the best job that we possibly can. I only took over in November, and it's really been a situation where I've been having my running shoes on every day at work. There's been a lot to organize because, of course, with this being the 40th anniversary of Roe, in addition to the recent election and then the loss of Nellie, we're getting a lot of special attention, I would say. So our goal for the march is a fewfold. We plan to have a much shorter program in terms of the actual march and rally itself. In the past, it's been in excess of 2 hours, and this year, participants will find that it's an hour, just right at an hour, maybe 5 minutes over. We've got fewer legislators than ever before. We've got many who are supportive of the march and are showing their support in different ways, including giving YouTube clips to be posted on our brand new updated website. So it will be a lot shorter, and most of the speakers are very actively engaged in pro-life causes. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be a very powerful program. We're going to have jumbotrons. We've got young people that are very much represented in the speakers, and all of our speakers are pretty much geared towards young people as well. Although I think they'll be applicable to everybody in the audience. Everybody will be excited, I hope, to hear what they have to say. We also are engaging in a pretty broad social media campaign. So we've updated our website, which is marchforlife.org. We're also quite active on Twitter and Facebook, and we've really been trying to utilize that very much, understanding that that's an important tool for young Americans. We've also been actively doing just a lot of media. I've been a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of media. I never in a million years expected that we'd be doing quite as much as we are, but I would say it's pretty much been nonstop since the beginning of January. So those are some changes. Now, more long-term, we'd like to grow the exercise piece of our mission. So as you mentioned, we are the March for Life Education and Defense Fund, and we haven't had much in the way of opportunity to do much with the education. I mean, what we really do is more the defense fund and try to give some pressure to the Hill to vote pro-life. And show the Supreme Court where we stand on this issue, but we'd like to do a little bit more with the education piece. I think how that will be fleshed out remains to be seen. Although I envision some sort of being a voice basically on some of these issues culturally, as well as in terms of public policy. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for that. But the immediate goal is just to get through this Friday and Saturday. Actually, there's lots of events even on Saturday.
Yes, I noticed that there's going to be a Nellie Gray 5K. Is that something new?
It is the first annual 5K, and it's the Nellie Gray 5K, and it's a little bit of a fundraiser for the March for Life, and it's sponsored in large part by Life Runners, which is a really awesome group based out of the Midwest, and their whole goal is to get runners to offer their runs for the babies, basically for the unborn babies. So we're excited about that 5K.
I see. Can I go back and ask you about the Defense Fund?
Yeah.
Because I never really asked Nellie this. The Defense Fund, are they helping pro-life congressmen? Is that what they do, or do they get involved with court cases? What did the Defense Fund do?
No, actually? I think primarily it's what you've seen. It's putting on this event. But what I meant by that is, protesting. And we are, as I said, the largest pro-life event and really the largest pro-life and potentially civil rights protest in the world. So that's really what I meant by way of defense. Mm-hmm.
And one question I have, and maybe the public has too, in the pro-life community in particular, is why did you take on such an enormous task as this?
Yeah. I ask myself that question. I'm sorry, Brett.
Yeah, that's all right.
Well, yeah, essentially the way that this transpired, I'd have to say that I had just a deep sense in my heart that this was what God wanted me to do, because truly it's not what I had in my mind. I was working at Family Research Council, as you mentioned, and I planned on being there for many more years. And I was voted, I had been on the board for a little while when Nellie passed away, the board of the March for Life. And we made a very quick decision the day after we learned of Nellie's passing and made an interim plan. I was involved in the leadership even at that point. But shortly after that, we decided to go forward on a more permanent basis. And that was in some part because I just had a very deep sense from God that it was what he wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm. I feel that Jumbotron idea is a terrific idea because the crowd stretched so far back towards the Washington Monument that a lot of people really can't see the stage very well. So that's a terrific advancement. And I was going to ask you, the March for Life Youth Rally, I've been struck over the recent years of how many young people are at the march. I'm talking from, say, age 7 or 8 up to 20 or 22. It's now the majority of the people, I think, at that march.
I agree. I think it's easily 80% of the participants are young people. And that's changed, It wasn't always that way. It's I think it was somewhere in the mid-90s that it started to, the age started to decline, so to speak, of the participants, the demographics. But it's so exciting because young people really are not only the future of the pro-life movement, but they really are, what's carrying the pro-life movement. And as I've been saying a lot, young people really understand that abortion is the human rights abuse of today. And they get so enthusiastic about it. They've got the zeal, and they lack the cynicism that people like me at my age have. And they really want to do something about it. And I think it will be them, joining together that will change the tide on this. So I see groups like Students for Life of America, and they've got something like 600 plus groups, on college campuses, and it gives me such hope for where we're going. So it's a somber moment in our country's history. We're thinking about the sad reality that we've lost 55 million Americans to abortion in the last 4 decades. I mean, that's about the population of California and New York combined. It's this enormous amount of people, not to mention the moms that have been wounded for making such a decision. But there's also a lot of hope in our young people. We are, as I think that there's a lot of hope ahead, a new era, and we're winning really one young person at a time. We're also winning one state at a time, but you might want to talk about that further down the road. But there's been all sorts of wonderful laws enacted at the state level.
Yes, I know in Texas they're doing a lot of work there, and I've had on the lady who used to be a former abortionist there in Texas. And,
I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of her name right now. I know exactly Carol. It's Carol something.
That's correct, and I'm blanking too at the moment. But now, as far as the congressman, I was struck 2 years ago when we had so many pro-life congressmen win in the 2010 election. And they, coming up on the stage, it just overwhelmed me after a while. I said, wow, we really did gain a lot of pro-life seats in the House of Representatives. Are you going to have every pro-life House rep speak, or is it going to be just a few, or how is that? How are you going to handle all that?
If there was one piece of advice that we got more than anything else, it was that we had too many legislators speaking. So what we've done this year is ask that leaders of the representatives would speak to us, and leaders of the legislators. So we have a small handful. We have Representative Diane Black from Tennessee to represent women. She's also just introduced an interesting piece of legislation as well. Then we've got the pro-life chair caucuses on the House side. So that's Chris Smith representing the Republicans and Dan Lipinski on the Democratic side. The Speaker of the House will be addressing everybody by videotape. And then on the Senate side, we're going to have Senator Rand Paul, who's very appealing and attractive to the young people. He's got these libertarian views, and he's very pro-life. So that's it in terms of legislators. That's it. So now we'll have other legislators who are sending YouTube clips for endorsement, and they're also sending letters of endorsement, and that will all go up on our website. And many of them will actually be standing behind their the spokespeople as they're speaking. So a lot of legislators will actually be there standing in support on the stage, but not actually speaking.
Uh-huh. Now, I also noticed from clergy that you're going to have the Cardinal from Boston, right here in Boston.
That's right.
You're going to have him on.
From your own hometown, Cardinal O'Malley. He is now the chair of the Pro-Life Secretariat for the Bishops' Conference. So he, I guess you would say, is the foremost Catholic pro-life spokesperson in the country at this stage in the game. So we are honored to have him open up the March for Life rally in prayer.
I see. Now, every year when I go, in recent years, you have the, I think, a Jewish rabbi, a conservative Jewish rabbi, towards the very end, and he's quite animated. Is he going to be speaking again at the March?
Unfortunately, no, although it's not because we aren't excited about our brothers and sisters who believe in Judaism, but it's hard because we try to basically get all of the different denominations represented, but you can't do that over the course of 1 year. So next year we'll probably have our Jewish brethren leading us in prayer, but this year at the end we're going to have Tony Perkins, who's my former boss at Family Research Council, but he's also an ordained pastor, so he represents more of the evangelical side, so he's going to lead us in a closing prayer.
Mm-hmm. And I was with one of the fellows who's been a guest on my show, David, not David B. Wright, but the gentleman from Detroit. And he said to me that, up at the top in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, the pro-aborts bring out 4 or 5 or 6 people with signs right in front of the Supreme Court as the march gets underway, so that they're stationed there for television cameras. And, it looks like when you watch national news like ABC or NBC that, there's an equal amount of pro-aborts and pro-lifers at the march because of how they they take this one spot. Is there any way to preempt these people from being up there so that they can't get that much coverage, given that we have several 100,000 people marching and they have a handful, maybe 4 to 20 or so?
Well, I will say we're approaching just media in general very differently this year, and the amount of media requests that we've gotten in inquiries and plans of different stations to be present during the March for Life itself, it's really unlike anything we've ever seen before. So I have a hard time believing that something could be that skewed this year. I think I have seen that in the past. But I think we're doing a pretty good job of trying to engage media as much as possible. And so anybody who's actually there recognizes the magnitude of this event. And it's ridiculous to make the comparison that 3 or 4 folks from the other side are sort of equally representing, the other side. So I think we're doing our very best to engage media and to present the truth of the reality as it is in this event.
And did you happen to catch, I think the retiring Nancy Keenan from NARAL said that they're losing the young people in the battle of the abortion battle. What did that?
I happened to catch it, yes. Very much so. And this is why I think that it is a new era. As I said before, I think we are winning one young person at a time. I mean, not only is NARAL Pro-Choice America saying that, but you just look at any of the bright, shining faces of the participants at the March for Life, and you see that's the case. But we can also look to opinion polling to see that young people are predominantly pro-life. Young people know that abortion is the human rights abuse of today. They want to bring it to an end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is your hope in the future as far as the education fund educating the public year-round? Is it just your website, or are there other ways that do you go out and around the country to speak and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so in some ways I think we're going to need a little bit of space and freedom and time without the pressures of this huge event and everything surrounding it to adequately discern how we're going to do that. So I hesitate to put too much flesh to that right now, but I foresee in the future just being, really having a voice in some of these issues. I think our website and social media will be important, but it won't end with that. So maybe you could have me back on in a few months when we've fleshed that out a little bit more. Okay,
I'll do that. And finally, I wanted to ask you about the life principles articulated on your website, and of course, Nellie and her group groomed them over the years. What do you find appealing about the life principles as Nellie Gray and her entourage had developed them and
Well, they're beautiful. I mean, in essence, they're basically saying that we believe that everyone has human dignity from the moment of fertilization, and that we hold these truths to be just absolutely self-evident. Like it's in other words, it's not because we're religious that we're pro-life, but it's written upon the heart that it makes sense and it's reasonable that everybody has human dignity and should be protected. So I think that these principles are beautiful, and I'm just grateful that they've spent so much time kind of working them through, and am excited to figure out how we continue to promote these principles moving forward.
I see. Very good. I know that when she was on this show once in the past, and she was on, Mildred Jefferson was hosting at the time.
Aww.
Along with, we had the president of the current president of Mass Citizens for Life. And Nellie was saying, and she reiterated something to the effect that it's not right that we give a certain class of people, being medical doctors, the right to kill others. It's just not right in our society.
Right.
That really struck me that she said that, because I was saying, my goodness, that's really what's going on. Of course, others have taken it into their hands these days, nurse practitioners in other states, but it was such when I first met her and I first heard her enunciate what her life principles were and why she felt no exception, no compromise was the rule. And she mentioned the Nuremberg trials about crimes against humanity. it turns out I have an uncle that was a judge in the Nuremberg trials.
Oh my goodness.
And so it was, kind of a nexus connection that we had. And I'm very grateful for her forthrightness, because I know there's a battle between within the pro-life movement of people who are the more absolutists versus the incrementalists that say, well, let's get this piece, let's get that piece.
Right.
And I'm not sure what the overall answer is, or what will get to our eventual goal of life being cherished again here in America and being a true right for all that are conceived from the moment of fertilization. Well, thank you so much, Jeannie, for taking time out of this pressure cooker week for you to be on our show. We're very appreciative
Thanks for hosting
here.
it. I really appreciate you having me, and thanks for giving a lot of attention to the March for Life. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeannie Monahan. And we hope you found today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. We're confident that if people know the truth, they'll ultimately change their hearts and minds to true love and kindness for the poor, the unborn, the elderly, the infirm, and all humanity. Thanks for watching. I'm Brendan O'Connell, your friend for life.